On this episode of Media Rebel Unplugged,
mentored by Barbara Corcoran, Dave Ramsey.
And that's not failure. I mean, that to me does not failure. And scientific research has shown worst case scenario happens less than 3% of the time.
You learn something from it. And as long as you're learning something from your failure, you're not failing.
Great.
You're taking that and you're rebuilding, you're educating, you're growing. And I don't ever see that as a failure.
Why do we choose to stay in boxes that no longer serve us?
Welcome back to Media Rebel Unplugged. I'm Janice. Today we're joined by an incredible guest who is a true rebel in the business world. She is a serial entrepreneur, a mentor, author, and a speaker who has built her career on the concept of breaking out of the boxes that hold us back, which I love. She has a book called Breaking Boxes, Dismantling the Metaphorical Boxes that Bind Us, and has been mentored by some of the biggest names in business in the media world, including Barbara Corcoran, Dave Ramsey, and Glenn Beck. Welcome to the show, Betsy Pepine.
Oh, thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you on. As I said prior to you even coming on here, to have another rebel is really important. Our mission here is to tell the stories of inspiring women to help other women out there. And I feel like you have had quite the journey. But if you wouldn't mind just giving us kind of a high-level overview of your background, because I know you wear many hats, but especially how you garnered also the mentorship and the support of such amazing people.
Okay. So I'm known for real estate. That's how I make my livelihood. That's a second career for me. I started that in my mid 30s. My first career was in the pharmaceutical industry in the Philadelphia area. And at the time I was working for a small biotech company, and we were a one product company, and the product did not get FDA approval. So they laid off the entire commercial division. And a short time later, I got divorced rather abruptly with the one and 2 year old daughters. And so I think when life throws you curveballs, it just makes you pause and pivot. And so I took a long pause. I literally moved back into my childhood bedroom and really just needed to regroup and figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so in that period of time, I decided to pivot into real estate. And so I've been in real estate now for going on 21 years. And it's just been a wonderful blessing. I gave myself 2 years, thought I would like it, but truly loved it and have been so blessed by the community supporting me and my vision.
There's setbacks in our lives and they're kind of a constant thing. Life is linear and in the happiness realm, nothing is perfect. It's always taking that moment, like you said, to pause in those setbacks and to pivot. And I think as true entrepreneurs and leaders, we tend to do that, right? Because to be a really good entrepreneur, I can't tell you how many times I've had to pivot in business. And if it wasn't for the pivoting, there wouldn't be any growth.
Right. Exactly.
So how did you garner the mentorship that you did, especially, for people that are looking for a mentor? What would be your advice to them?
So I highly recommend it. I did not get mentorship until probably 5 or 6 years into my career in real estate. And I wish I had gotten it earlier. I would do that regardless of what you're doing. I would highly recommend people get mentors immediately. I got those higher, well-known ones through different connections. So Dave Ramsey, he grew his brand and his wealth through real estate. Before he had the show, before he had his programs, it was real estate. And so I gravitated towards him. I was always reading his books. He espouses a debt-free lifestyle, which that's how I was raised. And that's what I taught my children, and that's what I teach my agents. And so when I heard that he was endorsing agents, I applied and was interviewed. And it's really nice because unlike some, especially in real estate, there's a lot of people trying to get a piece of the pie, and they will just take on agents for a piece of their business. Dave Ramsey, you have to be interviewed. You have to know his products. You have to really espouse his values and be able to talk, because he wants those values shared with his audience. And so when people go to his website or call his office and ask for recommendations, he wants to make sure that they're in line with what he believes. And so that's how that relationship came to be. And we have a monthly call that we share ideas and collaborate with other people that he endorses. And so that's a great resource for me to learn and grow. Barbara Corcoran, which is I really covet, she actually had to rebuild her business because when she got divorced, her husband got her business and she rebuilt it from the ground up. And then what I loved is once she decided to get out of real estate at the age of 60, she redefined herself as a as an entrepreneur. She was known as a real estate mogul, but she wasn't known as a general businesswoman. And she did that by getting herself on Shark Tank. And that whole story was really incredible. So I loved how at 60 and now she's in her mid 70s and still very relevant. And I think for as females, we don't have a lot of role models like that. But that relationship came about because the gentleman that I was purchasing my media from lives in New York and knew her and asked if I wanted to have a relationship. And so that's been lovely. I can fly up to 4 times a year and shoot commercials with her. She supported my book. She wrote a blurb for me on my book. She really empowers. Her mission is to empower women as well. I like 2 types of mentors. Ones that are a couple steps ahead of me and another set that are so far ahead of me. And I love to have both because they both bring me different things. And she's one that's, so far ahead of me. And I really like having that as something to aspire to.
That's a very powerful story and a strike of luck, it sounds like, for you to have come across that. I mean, yeah, her story is very inspirational to hear about. She got divorced and then her husband ran off with the secretary and married the secretary. And it's, oh my gosh, how many women could take that and take those ashes and rebuild themselves even better, redefine themselves? And it's a topic of conversation that we've held on here before regarding ageism, and especially women in ageism, because society has just always put us against some number. Either you had to be married by a certain age or, you were done with life at a certain age. And so for her to keep redefining herself and to be very relevant, as you said today, is so inspirational for other women. I think like 3 episodes ago, we had this conversation with a friend of mine. She was like, I'm living my best life now and I'm about to turn 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guilty of it. I think a lot of us women are really guilty of, I'm going to be 42. And I'm like, I'm not where I really wanted to be at 42. What does that really look like for myself? And I think it's great when we have women like that to kind of look at and say, it's never too late, no matter what your age is.
Right.
For people that are seeking mentors and don't have that luck of knowing other people, how would you encourage them to go about it?
Well, I always tell people can be your mentors and they don't even know it. Especially now with the internet, you can stalk people and watch what they do, see what they read. You can really get to know people in a very intimate way that wasn't around 20 years ago through social media and the internet. So start there. But there are always people, especially women. I mean, I'm pro woman. So especially women that want to help. If you are vulnerable enough to let people know that you want and seek help and constructive feedback, people will give it to you. Overcome whatever fear that you may be resisting and reach out to those people locally. It depends on what industry you're in. Like for me, I'm in real estate. It's highly competitive within your local market. So a really solid female mentor in real estate is not going to want to share things right in my area. But if I go 3 cities over, sure, they're going to be fine. And so I would seek out women that you admire some aspect about their life and start engaging with them on social media, reaching out, seeing if you can take them to lunch, asking, hey, I would love to learn from you. Even if it's a one-time thing where you just get a lunch, right? That's okay. I've had that. I've also had very formal ones where I meet somebody once a month. So it can range. And then those are like one-on-one mentorships, but there's also, we call them masterminds in our industry, but you could also join or create a mastermind of like-minded women. We have one group here that I meet with once a month. We meet for lunch and it's other entrepreneurial women in all various industries. And it's very informal, but we learn and grow from each other. So it could be something as simple as that. So there's a variety of angles that you can get your mentorship advice from.
You bring up some really great points. There's a lot of times we could just simply have lunch with somebody one time and you can gain so much information off of that. I look at every conversation that I've had with women, there's been some piece of that I've been able to take away to add to my life. Like yesterday I had this great conversation and it was about the other personality we have, basically the one that keeps lying to us every day, the one we look in the mirror and we look fat or we're not smart enough, we're not good enough. And my guest says, well, give her a name because it's different when you actually name her and then tell her to be quiet.
Yeah.
So I walked away from that and I was like, yeah, and you also look at it from other women who've created personas like Beyonce, right?
Right.
And Sasha Fierce. And
Right.
then maybe there's another part of you out there
Right.
that gives you the confidence that you're lacking. So I was like, man, after that, my homework is to think of names for myself.
I love that. I have a girlfriend who took it a step further. And so she thinks she has a big butt. And so she's named it. She's like, Gertrude's not behaving today. Can't get into pants or something. And it's so fun because it's just, she makes it human, right?
Yeah, I saw a woman who does that. She's an influencer. She named her hair. She has this big, beautiful afro, and she named it. I wish I could remember the name. I think she gave it the name Tiffany or something, and it's beautiful. And you're right, it does create that human aspect to it as well. But you touched on a little bit about like fear, and even though some people are afraid to reach out to others, and I think that that's a really important topic too, is fear is a liar. Fear can hold us back. So when you have fear, self-doubt, and you're held against this societal expectation, how would you encourage somebody to move past that?
So I talk a lot about that in my book. And that's usually because what I explored in that is why do we choose to stay in boxes that no longer serve us? And usually a fear-based response. One of the biggest fears is fear of failure. And so for me, I look at that as another box. Failure is a label that I can choose if I desire to put on certain outcomes, but I choose not to. So I don't have failure in my life. That doesn't mean that I get everything I want. It means that worst case scenario, the outcome wasn't what I had hoped. I have to pivot. And if you're my age or older, we've all had to pivot when we haven't wanted to at times, and we're all still here. And we will have learned something very instrumental that we get to take with us for the rest of our lives. So that's not failure. I mean, that to me is not failure. And scientific research has shown worst case scenario happens less than 3% of the time. So that's just something in our heads that we allow to control us and give more importance than it really is. So for me, that's how I overcome that fear. There's also fear of loss. So it could be loss when you're trying to make these decisions and pivots, loss of maybe social status. I felt that when I decided to go into real estate because I came from a family of physicians, and there was expectations that I was going to be a physician, and I really didn't want to be a physician. And in my family of origin, if you were anything but a physician, it was definitely, you were knocked down a couple pegs. You were not considered as bright. And, why wouldn't you want this? Why wouldn't you want that? Like that was considered the pedestal. And, anybody that didn't want that there was something that's wrong with you, right? Either you were smart enough, couldn't handle it. It wasn't that you didn't want that, because why would you not want that? That's kind of the messaging that I got. So when I decided to go into real estate, which doesn't even require a high school diploma, that was shocking to my family. And I feared I would lose status in my family. And I did. But I understood that. But I also understood that saying yes to me was okay. Every time you say yes to you, you're saying no to something else. And that no, I weighed that and I said, that's worth it. And I know now that that's just my ego. And I say to myself, Betsy, put your ego on the shelf. That's all you have to do. Just mentally put it on the shelf and move in the directions of your dream. Because I'm not going to let my ego stop me from what I want to do. So that's another fear that I think people have, is we all have our ego trying to get in the way of what we truly want. So that's how I work through that one. And there's other ones. There's, fear of financial insecurity. That's what I faced when I went into real estate, because it's single mom. I'm leaving a very well-paid industry with great benefits, going into a very turbulent industry. I think that one is definitely more manageable now because we have the gig economy. People can drive for Uber, and do things remotely at home on the computer, which those things weren't available to me when I decided to go into real estate. But I think nowadays there's so many ways that people can supplement their income that the fear of financial insecurity is a little bit less than what it used to be. And that one can be usually overcome. Something that I do when I fear myself resisting is I write down what my fear is. Writing things down makes it all manageable. I think when it's in our heads, it can just grow and expand and become just overwhelming. But when you see something on paper, it just doesn't look bad. It's like, gosh, I could do that,
I just spoke to somebody who was talking about our emotions, and that coincides with that. It was about writing down your emotions in order to understand them. And you're right, when you put them down on paper, it's just paper. And also, you're talking about the failures. I've always said this. I actually got into a kind of an argument with a friend of mine because he had said he had failed 3 times before his business was successful. And I was like, but those weren't failures. I don't believe in that. You learned something from it. And as long as you're learning something from your failure, you're not failing.
Right.
You're taking that and you're rebuilding, you're educating, you're growing. And I don't ever see that as a failure.
Right. Exactly. Sarah Blakely, the owner of Spanx, I very much admire her. And growing up around the dinner table every night, her dad would ask her and her siblings, "How did you fail today?" What a beautiful gift that he gave his children to fail and expected them and wanted them to fail. I truly believe those that are most successful in life have failed the most.
Yeah, we build ourselves up from every failure. When you look at your journey of, some people would see divorce as a failure. I've been divorced 2 times, so I mean, I really felt like a failure, and I became a single mom, a teenage mom, ended up working 3 jobs in high school and put myself through college. And I think that the definition of failure is for us to define, not for others.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was on your website, and one thing that I really like that you give people is that toolkit. And I believe a part of that I saw was the journaling aspect, kind of like what you mentioned. Would you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. I mean, I'm a big proponent of journaling. I've journaled since I was probably in second grade. And like you alluded to earlier with the conversation you had with somebody else, writing down your emotions and feelings. And that's such a great exercise. I have an app on my phone, and it's a free app. It's called How We Feel. And it checks in with you several times a day. And it just says so it's asking me, how do I feel this morning? And then you check in, and there's 4 bubbles, and it's basically high energy, low energy, pleasant or unpleasant. And you click one, and then it gives you all these different, adjectives that further define how you're feeling. And then you click the one that's most germane to how you're feeling. And then it asks you who you're with, what you're doing, and what setting are you in. And so it's a way of kind of journaling on your phone, wherever you are. And you'll start to see patterns that you would never have noticed before once it's on paper or in an app like this. And then it's very simple. I move towards that which makes me feel good and move away from that which makes me feel bad. And that's been a journey for me. I never used to pay attention to how I felt. It was always, how did I think? But now I've learned to trust it will actually feel and listen to my body, and then trust that it knows what's best for me.
Wow. And so in your toolkit, you encourage people to journal, and what
Yes.
else could they expect from that?
They go through some exercises because a lot of people feel unsettled, but they don't know what's causing them to feel unsettled. So it helps them determine what boxes in particular are maybe holding them back and making them feel unsettled. And then what fears are the main fears that are holding them back, and then breaking down those fears and helping them build steps to start exiting the box that no longer serves them.
I love that you put that into boxes, because I think metaphorically it's so easy to then look at and identify what it is that's holding us back and mentally envision putting that into a box. And I think that does make it easier for people to then tackle it box by box.
Yeah. And I used it because I'm in real estate and I see boxes every day. And
Mhm.
boxes are designed to keep valuables safe, right? Like us. I mean, a box keeps us safe. I mean, it does. If you're in, when I went through my divorce and my layoff, I raced home to be in my familiar, family of origin box. That felt safe to me. So boxes serve us, but they can stop serving us. And like physical boxes that we use to move our valuables from house to house, we forget the transient nature of them and that they're designed to be dismantled and then set to the curb for garbage pickup day. Humans have a tendency to stay in their comfort zone and perhaps overstay their welcome in some of these boxes. And I should add, this journey has opened up my eyes to the boxes that I was putting other people in that perhaps didn't serve them either. And so we're not just taking in these other people or putting us in boxes. We're putting ourselves in boxes, and we're also putting other people in boxes as well.
I absolutely love that, because I know I have even 10 more boxes.
But it's like, in real estate, like we will literally go to somebody's house and there will be boxes in their attic that they have not, they just go from house to house. They move them. They don't know what's in them. And it's like that. It's like, why? It's almost like we're on this, I relate it in my book to being like Jim Carrey in the Truman Show. We think we're happy, but we're playing our lives out on a stage that's totally orchestrated by external forces. And so, we're just carrying these boxes from house to house, like unconsciously,
Yeah. Well, your book sounds very good. I'm gonna have to get myself a copy and start reading it immediately. For people looking to pick up a book like yours and to learn more about everything that you do, where can they find you?
So my book's on Amazon and all the major book retailers online. It's also available on my website. My website, where you get the free toolkit. There's a course on the website. It's betsypepine, my name.com. So very easy. And then I'm on all the social channels with my name at Betsy Pepine.
Wonderful. And we're going to make sure to include those links to your Amazon for people to pick up the book and to your website as well. So I hope every woman listening in will take advantage, because I think you have such wonderful information to give to them. And I think your story is very inspirational. I really admire you, and you have mentored me here today. And I thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure, Janice. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody that is listening. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe so that you can stay in the know on all the amazing rebels that we have on our show. And we will see you next time.